What in the world? KLR 650S. What is this deal? Let's check it out. All right, so my first motorcycle I ever really had was a KLR, but it wasn't a 650. It was a lot smaller, and actually it was kind of a slug. So I'm curious what Kawasaki's done with this iconic classic model that they're always sold for years and years and years. If you look at them now, man, they look awesome. They look mean. This one's red, has ABS, 21-inch front tire, and dual radiators. Remember, the KLR's classic signature is the single-cylinder mega thumper. But you see these things cranking. People take these things on huge rides. So let's see how this goes. I mean, it goes into a class with a lot of other bikes. Very comfortable. It's got a full fairing on it too for the front, caged. Very similar to the Versys in the way it looks as well. So we'll have to check this out. Look at this luggage rack on it too. Let me just come over here. Look at this thing. It is like a workstation. You could bolt lots of stuff to that. I like the engine guards on this thing too. Very beefy. Goes up and wraps all the way around with where, if you were to dump this, where you would hit it. So let's check it out. I originally filmed the walk around with the red one and it said 650S. S is not for sport. S is for, are you ready? Short. So when I went to get on it, the guy said, dude, take the white one. It's way better. So that's me. And I appreciate you, Kawasaki man. So this is the KLR 650, single cylinder mega thumper. There's one thing that this bike is not, and that's fast. So again, don't get on this bike thinking you're gonna have, you know, crazy neck snapping off-road power. That is not that. This bike goes after a very specific market, and this bike is really designed to capture the person that really does want to do some off-roading. They want a rugged bike. This is what we got for power. You ready? Oh my word. Wow, that was exceptionally rude. Yeah, so anyways, there's not a lot of power. And that's okay, because they don't market this as a bike that's super fast. There's a few trim levels on this bike, but they're all of these bikes are really no frills bikes, and they're priced accordingly. And you know, when you get into a bike like this, you don't have a lot of things that go wrong with it very quickly. So you're able to, you know, ride this bike without worrying about breaking all types of fancy stuff, because there isn't anything to break. This doesn't even have a gear indicator on it. No cruise control. You're basically just looking at headlights and blinkers and a horn. But you know what the KLR does good? The KLR does really good for the weekend rider that wants to go and do some exploring. And I think that's where this bike shines. It's narrow, single cylinder, super easy to maintain. Just not a lot of moving parts, so it's easy and fast to go. And there are some incredible videos online of people taking these bikes to like the ends of the earth, and the bikes just go. So my KLR that I had back in the day was phenomenal. I think it was a 450 when they first started making it, but I could be wrong on that. And I rode that bike. I rode the wheels off that bike. There actually wasn't even an odometer on it. There was just a trip meter that you would reset. No fuel gauge, no nothing. Very, very, very basic bike. Essentially a dirt bike with street tires and blinkers and a horn, so you could ride it. And that's what it was. I'll tell you what though, Kawasaki, you've got a good thing going with this, because this bike just goes down the road nicely, considering it's a single cylinder. That's it. I don't feel like I'm riding a chainsaw. It's comfortable. It's actually very comfortable. I feel spread out well. nice. The seat is extremely cushy and comfortable. And I really do have that dirt bike feel right now with this, which I like that. I kind of miss the connection to the bike when you get into these, you know, and listen, I have freeness of speech in this area. When you get into these $20,000, you know, enduro type bikes, you're going to start, you start losing the basic feeling of just being on a bike that you can cruise around on. So that's kind of nice. Now the brakes on this definitely leave some to be desired, but I mean, they're not going crazy with this because there's not a lot of power. Smooth, very smooth. Shifting is smooth. There's good torque. I mean, it's nice. It's not. I didn't come into this bike like I did when I test drove the Versus, thinking it was going to be this awesome neck snapping experience, and that bike kind of let me down a little bit, just being brutally honest. But I came into this bike with the exception of the KLR that I had before, and I feel like they really improved on that quite a bit. I will tell you, the vibration in this bike is almost non-existent compared to earlier models, especially when I was going down the highway there just for a second. I really enjoyed that, and then I can feel it. I got the thumper feel on this bike. I think if you put like a super trap on this bike, it'd be awesome. And the suspension just absolutely absorbs everything. This road is pretty rough right in here, and I've been kind of aiming towards the bumps to try it to see, like, you know, what is it going to feel like. And again, it's floating, so I would put knobbies on this thing and shoot it down a single track any day, definitely. It is a little bit on the underpowered side when you think about and you're in the woods and you need a little bit of perp to get over, you know, a log or something, because the bike is kind of heavy. I mean, this has a fairing on it, a windshield. It's designed to handle bags and luggage, so it's not exactly like a Honda 450 experience, right, where you've got a much lighter platform. But I don't think this bike is really that far out of its element. And I mean, especially the way the suspension is soaking everything up, I think this bike would actually be really fun to load up with a tent and just go into the woods somewhere, see what you can find, you know. I will tell you this though, again, just stepping on the brakes again, not that great. It's only got a single-sided rotor in the front and single-sided disc setup, I should say, in the front. Having I think it's got a 21-inch tire in the front. Having that with a single-sided brake setup is, man, it'd be cool if they had two, but again, it's, you know, that's a whole nother assembly, and probably the price point's going to change, so they're after it. Here's some of the specs on this bike. Voiceover Pete, take it away.
The nostalgia with this one runs deep. As I said, this was one of my first motorcycles I owned after I got my license. But I was told that it's better to drive a slow bike fast than it is a fast bike slow. So I think you kind of have to keep that in mind. This bike just is not very powerful, but it's manageable, easy to ride, and will pretty much go anywhere you want it to go. So as far as power goes, Kawasaki doesn't even like to advertise their horsepower ratings, but I was able to dig it off of a guy that did a dyno, and he's claiming that the bike has 36.9 horsepower and 35.4 pound-feet of torque at a whopping 4,590 RPM. So this is a very slow but steady bike, and the torque and the horsepower match each other, so it is rather fun to brap it, if you know what I mean. The weight of this bike is a little astounding at 464 pounds with fuel. And the reason why I say that's a little astounding is I would have thought for sure the bike would have been closer to the 400-pound mark, because it's just a no-frills chassis. But you do have a steel chassis with a lot of meat on it, designed for ruggedness. So you are going to get a little weight there. Now, the KLR has been being produced for a long time with very little changes. In fact, I could be wrong at this, but this is really the second rendition of this bike in its entire life cycle. Remember what they used to look like, and then they came to the new style that we see today. 2025 is promising a few more changes. It looks like they're going to put a new headlight on it, but really we don't know yet because they're not out. So it is an ADV that competes with two bikes primarily. The two bikes that come to mind are the Honda XR 650L and of course the Suzuki DR 650S. Both of those bikes cost about the same. They have about the same specs for power and weight. This bike comes in with ABS at $7,200 US, and without ABS it's sub $7,000. So they're an affordable bike, they're reliable, and there's just not a lot going on with them. A 5-speed manual, you got your change, standard chains with it. Compression ratio is just shy of 10-to-1, so you can run pretty much water through this thing. And because they're fuel injected now, they're really bulletproof. That's what I've got to say about it. Back to the ride.
All right, so just give you my impression on this bike. I'm quite impressed. In fact, if I was going to stack this up to same bikes in the class, Suzuki 650, you've got a Honda 650 as well, the XR. This is an awesome bike, and the platform is proven. I mean, they've only really done a couple updates on this platform since its inception. I really like the suspension. I think that the power band on this bike is well suited for the off-road single track environment. Nothing too crazy just because of the height, the weight of the bike, but with a few modifications you could probably really make this thing sing. I'd also say that the riding comfort is really good. This is better than the Versys, which is like their much more expensive model. It has just a really good holistic feel. It's down to earth, and its manners are there. You're not going to get yourself into trouble with this bike unless you're really unless you're really not being very careful. One thing that's disappointing on this bike, there's really two things I would say. Number one, the gear shift indicator. Maybe in the upper trims they put the number there, but this really should have a gear number indicator. That is very, very helpful, especially if you're off-road, to be able to glance down and see where you are. The second thing, and I think this is the biggest thing, which is really no bueno, is the brakes. The brakes on this bike are really bad. The front handlebar reservoir is better. I mean, it's like the original one they've been using all the time with the rubber line. Everything is pretty original, but when you squeeze on this brake, it's stiff and it's hard and it's there, but that's about it. There's really nothing good about the brakes on this bike as far as slowing down. So, you know, my feedback to Kawasaki would be, why not double up on the rotors on the front, or make the front caliper better, bigger, so that it grabs faster. Because again, with this bike, if you're not paying attention, you really got to use your brakes. I mean, that's like laying on the brake. You can tell. I mean, you'd never even lock it up. There's no way to even do that. But besides for that, this is a cool bike. Really reminds me of when I had a KLR when I was younger, and how much I liked it. And I think this would be a fun bike to go on a trip with too. It's geared appropriately so that you could cruise down the road pretty comfortably. Maybe not at 80 miles an hour, but it'll get you there. Won't get you there fast, but it'll get you there. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this ride. I know I've enjoyed it. And if you have any thoughts or comments, if you bought one of these bikes, let me know. These are real popular. There's a lot of people that buy these bikes and really enjoy them. Let me know what your thoughts are. I'd love to hear it. All in all, very impressed. Very impressed. Very nice platform. So that's my thoughts. As always, please ride safe.